To get the most out of technology training, there really are a few things that you need to do. You want to make sure that it's applied. Training only happens when you actually apply what you know in the real world. Not only do you need to apply it, but you need to repeat it. It's best if it's repeated a number of times, spaced out. In other words, maybe you do part of it one day, do part of it the next day, and do part of it next week. Doing these things over and over really make a difference. Benjamin Franklin said, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, but involve me and I will learn." What he's basically talking about there is what we know now as active training, active learning. What we want to be able to do is be down in the active learning portion of the pyramid of learning. Lectures, like you had in school, very passive and very unlikely for you to remember. However, if it's active, in other words, if you're doing a group discussion or actually doing the activity in the real world, practicing exactly the skill that you want, or teaching others, those things really make a difference. So you really need some patience and repetition. People learn better from peers and coaches than a lecture. People learn even more if they have hand-on practice, particularly if they do it right after they've been exposed to it. So if someone tells you how to do a particular procedure and you immediately do it afterwards, that's the best way to do the practice. But you also learn best if you teach others, because you have to have a good grasp of the information before you can actually teach someone else. This is the 70-20-10 model of learning. Most people, when you actually ask them what they've actually, learned throughout their lifetime, only a small fraction of it came from formal learning. More of it came from you learning from someone else in an informal setting, like a coaching someone, or you've gone through the process of being on a team. You learn that way. You also learn just, on the job. So that's part of that social learnings when you're talking to someone and learning. But the vast majority of what you learn comes from experiential learning and actually doing something. Some people actually consider this a little bit of a little off as far as the percentage wise. Some studies show that it's more like 80% experiential learning, 15% social learning, and 5% formal learning as far as what people actually have learned. The best thing to do is to have experiential learning and learn things in pieces. In other words, learn a little bit here and build on it later and build on it later. When you're learning something new, you can treat your location or department as your learning group. Okay, so y'all get together, y'all talk about things. You may repeat something. If you are not sure about something, you ask. Then that causes someone else to remember, and then y'all discuss it. And maybe you can relate it to something else. So all those things are good as far as learning. So in a learning team, you're both a learner and a teacher, which allows you to be both, have the discussion, have the experience, and also be a teacher. And because you might know something that someone else doesn't know, because everyone has different life experiences. And so you can contribute and discuss different things as far as learning something. So learning together allows each person to help remember for the group, and then you can apply it to your work. You really want to apply the information that you learn in any situation to the real world and apply it as soon as possible. In other words, it's best to apply it immediately. And you want to also make sure that it's repeated. And that can be repeated that day or the next day or the next week. But the more times you repeat it, the better it's going to be. There's a Russian proverb that says, repetition is the mother of learning. And I think that's fairly true. Repeating it over and over gets it set in your mind and you'll remember it. It's also best to connect it to something you already know or something that the person that you're trying to help already knows. For instance, you can consider the set up for creating a video like a recipe. You take this part and you do this next and you do this next. So it's like cooking. Okay. So you can think of it that way or relate it to something else that someone already knows, and it can be very helpful. But training really happens when you take action in the real world. In other words, just listening to it, and if you never apply it or if you never do it, you will not remember it. It just fades away out of your memory. So everyone does need a helping hand. There's no time that you're not going to eventually need some help with something. Sometimes you can get that from a cheat sheet or a quick guide on a subject. It can be very, very helpful. You can go to the manual to find out where the instructions are. You can ask your fellow co-workers for help. You can go to YouTube and watch a video. They have a video on virtually everything. You can Google something if you need help on it, or you can always contact IT and we'll be glad to help you. One thing to remember is technology really stinks. It's never perfect. The hardware and the software sometimes don't work just like we want it to. And there's always a trade-off. Okay, so maybe you have an electric drill that has a battery and you're use it. Well, if you have no battery life left, if your battery goes to zero, then guess what? Nothing's going to happen. Okay, so if you had a different tool, say one that plugged into an electrical outlet, if you were close to an electrical outlet, that would work. So there's always a trade-off no matter what tool that you use. And we are creatures of habit. So if you get used to using some software one way, you like that way, and you want to keep doing it that way, even if some new program does it differently. So there's always going to be a trade-off in whatever technology that you use. But you can learn this stuff, okay? Everyone has the ability to do this, and it might take you longer than some other people, and that's okay. Think in basic procedures, okay? Break it into small bits if necessary. So, you maybe just learn one little bit this day, one little bit the next day, and it builds on it, okay? So, but get in there and give it a shot, and you can learn it.